Around 17 years ago, something happened that changed my life in ways I never expected. I got caught up in a complicated situation. I had an affair with the wife of a pastor who owned a big Pentecostal mega church. The twist? She and I shared a dark secret, something that, if exposed, could make it to the front page news. So I had to be really careful and hide many details to avoid being found out. When I was 16, I found myself moving into yet another foster home. It wasn't the first time. Since my grandmother passed away, I've been shuffled around from one foster home to another. My mom unfortunately had a serious problem with drugs. The state took me away from her after I was born and gave me to the closest responsible relative, who turned out to be my mom's mother. Growing up, I never knew who my dad was. He could have been one of my mom's many boyfriends, but the truth remained unknown. After my grandmother passed away, my mom couldn't take me back. There were two main reasons for this. First, nobody could easily find her, and second, she was still struggling with drug addiction. Life in foster care wasn't easy. Each new home brought its own challenges, but I did my best to adapt. So, there I was in the system, moving from one foster home to another. The couple I ended up with this time were in their early 50s, a married pair who had raised their own kids, but they had all grown up and moved out. The house was big, a 5-bedroom house, and there were about 7 kids, including me. The couple, despite their own experiences as parents, were quite different from what I had encountered before. They were disciplined and professional. While they could show compassion at times, they also approached the whole foster parenting thing as a business. They didn't get too attached because, in their eyes, kids came and went around the house. It was a different dynamic from what I was used to. Living with them had its challenges. The house was well organized and there were rules to follow. They ran a tight shift, making sure everyone did their chores and kept up with their responsibilities. At times, it felt a bit like living in a structured environment, not just a home filled with warmth and attachment. But life went on. I adapted to the routines and rules, trying my best to fit into this new family dynamic. At 16, I found myself being the oldest among the 7 boys in the foster home. The couple who took us in had a unique way of managing things to maximize their profit. Instead of spending money on groceries, they sent us to soup kitchens and weekly pantries to get what we needed. It meant they didn't have to spend a dime on food, and their only real expenses were the mortgage and utilities for the house. Essentially, they were making a significant profit from running a foster home business with us. Because the couple saw us more as dollar signs than as children in need, we didn't have a personal connection with them. As a result, we ended up bonding more with each other. Since all the other kids were younger than me, they naturally looked up to me. I took on a kind of mentor role, guiding them through school, helping with cooking, and making sure everyone did their chores and responsibilities. Despite the unconventional arrangement and the business-like approach of the couple, we formed a sort of makeshift family among ourselves. In the absence of strong connections with our foster parents, we found support and camaraderie with each other. As we continued to frequent the local soup kitchen, I met a woman named Mrs. Carroll, fake name to conceal her identity. She was 36 years old at the time, and she often volunteered there with her husband James, who happened to be a local pastor. James was 42, and they would come together with their 2 children, a 5-year-old boy and a 7-year-old boy. I got to know Mrs. Carroll as we crossed paths at the soup kitchen every week. We would exchange greetings, and she seemed friendly and approachable. One day, while she was serving meals as usual, she encouraged me to come ahead of time to volunteer. She explained that they sometimes struggled to find enough people to help out. I was happy to volunteer and promised to come early the next time. True to my word, I arrived early for the next volunteering opportunity. I even brought along my foster brothers to help out. Our presence turned out to be more than enough assistance for them, and we gladly pitched in to serve meals and clean up afterward. It felt good to be part of something positive, especially considering the challenges we faced in our foster home. Mrs. Carroll's kindness and the opportunity to contribute to the community added a different dimension to my life. Mrs. Carroll appeared to be a really nice person. She always had a warm smile on her face, and I appreciated the positive energy she brought to our interactions. It wasn't until one day, after we finished serving meals, that I learned her husband, James, was a pastor. She invited me and my brothers to attend one of their church services. At that time, I was hesitant. I didn't have any personal connection with religion, and I had never been to church before. However, I held a positive view of Pentecostal church people because they had often been willing to lend a helping hand to me throughout my life. Despite this, I was still unsure about accepting Mrs. Carroll's invitation, even though she was persistent. After several more times of volunteering at the soup kitchen, I finally had the chance to meet James, her husband. He seemed to like me, appreciating my hard work in cleaning up the kitchen. I had energy and a friendly personality, which earned his approval. However, it was rare for him to come and volunteer himself because he was always busy with his pastoral duties. Despite my reservations about attending church, the positive experiences with Mrs. Carroll and James began to open my mind to the idea, and their kindness made me consider giving it a try. One day, I decided to attend the church with two of my brothers who were closer in age to me. We felt a bit out of place, wearing our casual outfits instead of the typical church attire. The church wasn't huge at the time, with around 400-600 members, but it was big enough that we felt like we stood out like sore thumbs. During the service, we didn't see Mrs. Carroll until after it ended. She was seated around the pulpit with her husband, Pastor James, and some church elders. Mrs. Carroll was the primary church singer, and she was really good at it. After the service, I made sure to approach her and say hello. She was happy to see me, but our interaction was short-lived as she immediately turned her attention to other members. Over the next few weeks, I found myself thinking about Mrs. Carroll often. She had been so kind to me and my brothers, and I always looked forward to seeing her. During our volunteering events at the soup kitchen, I would frequently ask her if she needed anything, wanting to find more opportunities to talk with her. There was something about her presence that captivated me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our connection was becoming more meaningful than just the occasional exchange of greetings at the soup kitchen. One day, Mrs. Carroll shared with me that her family had just finished relocating, but the movers forgot a few things, and she needed some help. Her husband, Pastor James, was too busy, so she asked if I could come and assist. I was more than glad to lend a hand. After the soup kitchen closed, one of my brothers and I joined Mrs. Carroll and her kids in her car, and we drove to her new house, which wasn't too far from the soup kitchen. During the ride, we chatted, and I gave her a rundown of my life as a foster child who didn't know my parents. Mrs. Carroll expressed sympathy for my situation and asked about my aspirations for the future. I told her that I dreamed of becoming a musician. I explained that I had once been learning to play a musical instrument with a group of friends but lost touch because I didn't have a cell phone or access to the internet. Opening up to Mrs. Carroll about my dreams and struggles felt strangely comforting. She listened attentively, and her genuine concern made me feel a sense of connection that I hadn't experienced before. After helping Mrs. Carroll with the move, she surprised me by taking me to Walmart and buying me a Nokia cell phone. It was a prepaid phone that could make calls, send texts, and even browse the internet. I was overjoyed. It felt like getting my first car, and a whole new world opened up for me. With my new phone, I added contacts, including some friends. However, the person I found myself frequently texting was Mrs. Carroll. This was during a time when taking pictures and sending them to people was a new thing. Since there was no Instagram back then, she would send me pictures of what she was wearing for the day or her outfit before going to the gym. Nothing revealing or inappropriate, but I would often go over the top by telling her how cute and beautiful she looked, giving her all sorts of lofty compliments. She seemed to enjoy it, responding with more pictures at least twice a day. Our exchanges became a daily routine, our little secret, even though the pictures were not inappropriate. The more pictures and compliments I gave her, the more my feelings for her developed. It was an unexpected connection, and despite the innocent nature of our exchanges, I couldn't help but feel a growing bond between us. As time passed, what started as innocent exchanges of daily outfit pictures between Mrs. Carroll and me began to hold special significance. It felt like she was sharing something personal with me alone, even though it was just about her daily attire. As we continued our regular texting, my feelings for her grew, especially when we met during volunteering events at the soup kitchen. We started texting more than talking, and after each volunteering session, she began giving me innocent hugs. While these hugs were entirely innocent, they became the highlight of my day. The lingering scent of her perfume would stay with me, and I cherished that small connection. I found myself constantly thinking about her and developed a crush on her. With the money I saved, I decided to buy a jacket so I could attend her church and see her more often. Seeing her during the volunteering events wasn't enough anymore. One day when she sent me a picture, I decided to express something I hadn't said before. I called the picture sexy. Usually, after complimenting her, she would respond with a thank you. But this time, there was silence. I became nervous, thinking I had messed up. To make matters worse, she didn't send me any more pictures for 2 days, as if to confirm my fears that I had crossed a line. Feeling uneasy about my previous comment, I decided to apologize to Mrs. Carroll in person when I saw her at the soup kitchen the following week. When we were alone and no one else could hear us, I sincerely apologized for what I had said. To my relief, she acted unfazed and gave me a look as if I was overreacting. She claimed to be fine with the comment, although her body language suggested otherwise. She wasn't as warm as she normally was with me. Strangely enough, the next day, she sent me a picture of herself. I vividly remember texting her, "You are a goddess. I wish you were mine." Once again, she didn't say thanks but sent another picture the following day. This time, her clothes were a bit tighter than usual, and it seemed unlikely that she would wear such an outfit outside. I commented on how sexy she looked, and from that point on, the pictures she sent became progressively sexier. However, they still left much to the imagination, never revealing too much or without clothes. It became clear that she enjoyed the attention I was giving her. Since I saw her kids every week at the soup kitchen, we became close and I played with them a lot. I knew them well. One day she asked if I could babysit because she and her husband had to go somewhere. I said yes. I played hide and seek with her kids and it was enjoyable. When she and her husband returned, they paid me. Back then, it meant a lot to me as I didn't have a job. I used the money right away to buy clothes I really liked because the ones my foster parents got for me weren't to my taste. We got really close, and sometimes she'd send me playful and flirty pictures that hinted at something more, without showing anything explicit. I'd respond by telling her how I wished she was mine and what I wanted to do with her. She never replied with words, and we never discussed it. It was just something that happened in our text messages. One day I babysat for her. When she returned home, we played hide and seek with her kids. While her youngest child was supposed to find everyone, I hid behind the closet door in the dark. Mrs. Carol was looking for a hiding spot, and I couldn't tell if she didn't find one or just wanted to join me. So she decided to join me in my hiding spot, with her back pressed against me. We stood there as the romantic tension that had been growing for months was hard to ignore, and I started to touch her. She turned around and we started making out and filling each other. We only stopped when her kids called us. Riding my bicycle home, I was the happiest I had ever been, relishing the memories. After that, she stopped sending pictures, and I didn't text her until she asked me to babysit again the next week. When she returned, she got pizza for her kids. While they were eating, we discreetly went to the bedroom and got intimate. That was my first sexual experience. From then on, she would text me, and I would ride to her house even when I didn't need to babysit. We would lock the door and be intimate. Sometimes we'd stay in bed, talking. She'd ask me not to tell my friends, brothers, or anyone else about us. We developed a close bond, and she shared that her husband was strict, only wanted missionary, and was always busy. We were intimate at least 3 times a week. I probably should have felt guilty because I was with a married woman, and not just any married woman, but one married to a pastor. I didn't care, I thought I was in love. I was almost obsessed with her, wishing I didn't have to go home and could stay in bed with her all night talking. But I had to leave because her husband was coming home. Our time together became less frequent, about twice a week. Fast forward about a year later, I had found a job as a cashier, and the babysitting job wasn't as often or for as long. During our time together, she never asked me to use protection. Then one day, while being intimate, we forgot to lock the door and her son walks in and saw us red-handed. I am not sure how aware he was, but he seemed to be a smart kid. We didn't know how long he had been standing there, so we jumped and tried to cover ourselves. She hurriedly asked me to leave, and I could see that she was panicked. It was the first time we'd been caught, and we'd been having a relationship for almost a year. From that point on, she started growing distant. She wouldn't send me pictures or invite me over anymore. When I went to the soup kitchen to talk to her, she said we should stop seeing each other. I couldn't get over her, so I kept texting her and showing up at the soup kitchen. Eventually, she stopped coming and I felt guilty, thinking it was because of me. I felt really hurt and abandoned, secretly crying for days. I looked at all the pictures she sent me like a lost puppy, believing I was in love with her. After a week of not seeing her, I decided to go to her church just to catch a glimpse of her. This was about a month after our breakup, and surprisingly, I found out she was pregnant. At the time, it didn't occur to me that I might be the father. I just felt relieved, thinking that maybe she stopped seeing me because she was pregnant, not because she had abandoned me like others in my life. I went back home and focused on my job and school. When I graduated high school, I left the foster home to join the Navy. During my time in the Navy around 2005, I started thinking about the possibility that I might be the father of her baby. Unfortunately, I had no way of looking them up. I concluded that her husband probably wasn't the father. As she had mentioned, they were not very intimate. She also told me that I was more intimate with her than she was with her husband. After leaving the military, I didn't think about her much, as I was traveling the world and dating different women. Eventually, I married a Japanese woman and brought her to the United States once my business started thriving. Recently, I looked her up on Facebook. I found out she's still with her husband, actively involved in church affairs, and their church has grown bigger. She now has 4 kids, and when I look at the third one, I can't help but notice some features that resemble mine. However, I don't plan to disrupt everyone's lives by revealing this information. It could potentially ruin not only her life, but mine as well. It feels like one of those things you take to your grave. What do you guys think I should do in this situation?